Today I tell you a very interesting and exciting story of an investigation when the suspect is smarter than the detective. Alright, I've been through the system, and let's get one thing straight, you're not my friend. All you're after is some nonsense confession, and I'm not giving you one. Now, picture a seemingly regular evening back in 2011. Alarm bells start ringing in a local 7-Eleven as reports flood in about an armed robbery. The local police rush to the scene, only to find no sign of the suspect. After expanding their search, they hear commotion in a nearby house. With no other leads, they storm in and find a known heroin addict, Jeff Pearson, sitting with a gun. With little evidence, they arrest him and take him in for questioning. But here's where it gets interesting. Jeff Pearson, the so-called addict, goes down in history for outsmarting the cops during his interrogation. Held in police custody for almost a day, the footage from the 3 interrogation sessions barely adds up to 15 minutes. In Georgia, where the robbery occurred, the usual minimum sentence for such a crime would be around 10 years, possibly a life sentence without parole. However, Jeff ends up not serving a single minute of that time. The footage, originally uploaded to Jeff's own YouTube channel on September 25, 2011, unveils the masterclass of how to handle police custody like a pro. Jeff, experiencing heroin withdrawals, spent the next 24 hours in custody being served drinks and candy while demonstrating a remarkable ability to navigate police tactics. As the footage begins, Jeff, dressed in prison scrubs, has already been processed and spent time in a cell. The cops are ready to question him. Jeff immediately questions if he's under arrest and on what grounds, showcasing that he has done his research. This sets the tone for what unfolds, revealing how Jeff adeptly handles the police's attempts and offers a guide on what to do when facing an interrogation. If you find yourself being arrested, it's crucial to assert your rights. You can promptly request a lawyer and remain silent until one is provided. These actions offer the best opportunity to halt police proceedings and build a solid defense. Interestingly, when being arrested in the United States, officers are legally obligated to remind you of these rights. Listen to the Miranda warning that this detective reads to Jeff: you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer for advice before we question you. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer and you want one, he'll always be a provider for you. If you decide to answer questions now without a lawyer present, you'll still have the right to stop answering at any time. These rights, although commonly heard in media, are crucial but often overlooked due to the panic of being arrested. What the detective doesn't emphasize is that if you request a lawyer while under arrest, they are prohibited from continuing questioning. You possess an unequivocal right to refuse to answer any questions until provided with an attorney. The detective concludes the rights with a snide remark about Jeff's past, subtly reminding him of his previous criminal record. The detective tries to ascertain if Jeff understands his rights, attempting to downplay the importance of the situation. Jeff, exercising his right to remain silent, faces the detective's attempt at intimidation. Despite the detective's attempt to show indifference, his body language betrays a sense of unease, indicating that he anticipates a challenging interrogation. In an attempt to assert dominance, the detective implies that they can wait as long as necessary. However, Jeff, by choosing to remain silent, effectively dismantles the detective's approach. The detective, realizing the complexity of the situation, acknowledges that Jeff has control over the interaction. The footage captures a strategic and calculated approach by Jeff, showcasing his ability to navigate a potentially difficult interrogation. Yeah, you're under arrest. I'm getting back to the show. I don't talk to you, okay? In the initial round of interrogation, Jeff displayed precisely the right behavior given his circumstances. He understands the cops have nothing substantial on him, otherwise, they wouldn't be engaging with him. So, he remains silent, prompting his return to the cell. However, 2 hours later, he's back in the same room for round 2. The detective offers a Coke, and Jeff declines, only requesting a can of soda. Yet, he subtly mentions the withdrawals he might be experiencing. When asked about methadone, Jeff reveals his dependence, suggesting he might be going through withdrawal soon. Methadone, the drug he asked for, can alleviate withdrawal symptoms and cravings, potentially during his entire time in custody. The detective probes Jeff's history with heroin, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. Jeff, however, redirects, insisting he didn't commit an armed robbery and lacks evidence against him. He dismisses personal talk, expressing frustration at being arrested for something he didn't do. Jeff sees the interrogation as an attempt to force a confession, asserting he won't provide one. The detective, ironically claiming not to seek a confession, continues questioning. Jeff recounts being found in his friend's house due to a commotion, emphasizing the lack of evidence against him. He refuses to sign anything, highlighting the irony of the cop's statement while keeping him handcuffed in the interrogation room. Despite the intensity, Jeff's responses seem almost rehearsed, showcasing his adeptness at navigating the interrogation and maintaining control over the narrative. Jeff's impressive legal defense becomes even more remarkable considering that he's likely undergoing withdrawals. Notably, Jeff highlights the police's attempt to coerce a confession from him. In these interrogations, the Reid technique, developed in the 1960s, plays a central role. It involves 9 steps, starting with a polite discussion and culminating in offering 2 alternative statements, one of which, regardless of choice, implies guilt and is treated as a confession. This method is notorious for extracting false confessions from innocent suspects. Gaslighting tactics, like those embedded in the Reid technique, were evident in Jeff's interrogation. Despite initial willingness to share his version of events, Jeff asserts his right to remain silent and requests a lawyer. The detective expresses confusion about Jeff's decision, attempting to pressure him into providing information. Jeff stands firm, asserting his innocence and the need for legal representation. As the detective insists on holding Jeff for robbery, Jeff calmly demands a lawyer. He questions the need for legal representation, emphasizing his past encounters with the law without such extensive interrogations. Jeff remains resolute, refusing to answer questions without legal counsel. The detective attempts to undermine Jeff's position by claiming to have sufficient evidence for a real robbery. However, Jeff maintains his innocence, challenging the detective to be convinced by his side of the story. Despite the detective's assertion of having substantial evidence, Jeff stands firm, illustrating his adeptness at maintaining his rights and challenging the interrogator's tactics. This sets the stage for Jeff's continued defense and dismantling of the detective's case as the interrogation unfolds. "Why should I tell you that?" Jeff questions, puzzled by the detective's insistence on extracting information. This marks the point where the detective, sensing desperation, abandons sophisticated techniques and resorts to thinly veiled threats. In a last-ditch effort, he implies having evidence that could incriminate Jeff. Instead of using this potential evidence to intimidate Jeff, the detective attempts a crude form of manipulation, suggesting that Jeff's lack of cooperation hinders any help the detective could offer. The detective attempts to bargain with Jeff, proposing a quid pro quo where information exchange could benefit Jeff with his parole officer. However, Jeff sees through this ploy, understanding that promises of cooperation mean little when faced with the prospect of a lengthy prison sentence. This desperate negotiation underscores the lack of concrete evidence against Jeff. The detective tries to exploit Jeff's vulnerability, but Jeff remains steadfast, requesting a lawyer and asserting his right to remain silent. The detective's actions raise questions about the violation of Jeff's rights, given that he has requested legal representation multiple times. Over the next 4 minutes, Jeff maintains his composure, rejecting every assertion made by the police. Despite efforts to strike a deal, mention the gun found with him, and evoke the fear of returning to prison, Jeff remains resolute. He realizes that everything he says could be used against him and wisely chooses not to provide any additional information. As the interrogation unfolds, Jeff, staying composed, eventually expresses frustration, declaring he's done answering questions. He astutely notes that everything said in the interrogation will be written in the discovery, highlighting his understanding of legal processes. Remarkably, 12 hours later, Jeff is released from custody. Subsequent reports indicate that he turns his life around, leaving behind heroin addiction. Jeff starts creating content for his YouTube channel, even sharing insights on avoiding police tactics. This unexpected turn of events showcases Jeff's resilience in the face of intense interrogation and his ability to assert his rights effectively. I hope you learned something valuable from this story.